So, hi everyone, my name is Pirttinen. I'm a PhD student at the University of Helsinki, Finland, and I'm here representing our wonderful group of researchers from 4 different universities. In this paper, we report initial results of a new course-based university intake mechanism arranged through a collaborative project called Digital Education for All, or DEFA for short. In the study, we inspect how the students accepted through this new intake mechanism perform in their studies in each university and examine whether the intake demographics differ from our other intake mechanisms. I would like to begin by telling you a little bit about the motivation for this project, which I will describe in more detail very soon. The interest for computer science as an educational field and as a career choice has been very popular for at least the past decade. In Finland, this can be partially because of Finnish success stories such as game company Supercell and mobile game Angry Birds. People see the hype on the media, they see the progress, and they want to be part of it. But computer science degree is also seen as beneficial in the job market. There's continuous media coverage on something called the programmer shortage, meaning the lack of competent programmers in the job market. The DEFA project is one way universities answer this need of programmers by trying to find a new way of enrolling motivated and competent students into computer science programs in a scalable manner. But before I go any further into our actual study, I would like to address some Finland-specific factors that are very important to keep in mind. So something to know about the Finnish university system. There are no tuition fees for EU residents, and the vast majority of our bachelor students are from Finland, meaning that almost all of our students are studying free of charge. Besides this, Finnish students receive monthly financial aid to help cover some of the living costs while studying. If a student is eligible for the student benefit, they are also eligible for a government-backed student loan. This student loan is quite popular. The latest information was from 2019, and it stated that almost 50% of students across all fields, across all Finnish universities who are eligible for the loan also took it. Sometimes this is new to necessity, but especially on fields like computer science, where students see the employment as almost a certainty after graduation, it's mostly just seen as a cheap loan. Additionally, there are no private universities, so all our universities are government funded. University funding is, however, affected by the number of graduating students, which means that from the university funding perspective, we want to have students who have a great potential to graduate, preferably on time, because that also affects the funding we receive. Although these factors do have an effect on our study, the underlying problem of needing more competent and motivated students is universal, as well as the need to address the typically high dropout rates in computer science programs. So, our admission policies. While there are some university and field-specific differences, generally, university admissions can be divided into 2 intake mechanisms. First one is main intake, which is the significantly larger one and contains traditional intake mechanisms such as the grades of a national exam taken at the end of high school or a university entrance exam. Open university intake has quite a lot of variation between universities, and the full details for the universities participating in this study can be found in the paper. However, typically, the open university intake consists of a set of courses and a GPA requirement that students need to fulfill. The required credits range from 15 to 25 ECTS credits, which corresponds to about a half semester to a semester load of work. As for the GPA, the average required is typically 3.0 or 3.5 out of 5. Traditionally, there has been a course fee for these courses, which, while it's not very expensive, tends to ruffle some feathers in a country where education is typically free on all levels. Also, the open university intake, while it's great, it's very under-advertised, and both of these issues are something that we try to address in the DEFA project. So, Digital Education for All, or DEFA for short, was a 3-year ministry-funded project that started in 2018. Our plan was to open first-year computer science courses for all interested parties, online and free of charge. We also wanted to develop a new intake mechanism based on these courses and increase collaboration between Finnish universities. Out of the 5 participating universities, 4 deployed either a new intake mechanism or extended an existing one significantly, and will report the effects of the DEFA project in this study. So besides University of Helsinki, the 3 universities participating are Universities of Jyväskylä, Oulu and Turku. Our main goals were to reach motivated students with a clear grasp of computer science studies and offer interested parties a possibility to try out computer science without commitment. This is because computer science is not traditionally taught in lower education in Finland. So students may have very programming-oriented view of CS or only apply for the field because they have seen it on the media. This can lead to increased dropouts, and students who just want to try out the field may take a place from another student who does have more internal motivation for the studies but did not perform well, for example, in the entrance exam because of the stress of the exam situation itself. There were 2 main ways of adopting the DEFA intake. First one being modifying the existing open university intake mechanism by, for example, removing course fees, accepting courses completed in other participating universities for as part of the admission criteria, offering more first-year courses, and increasing acceptance quota. Universities of Jyväskylä, Oulu, and Turku chose this option. In University of Helsinki, we went for a slightly different route. So we created a new intake mechanism alongside the old open university intake with a set of new admission criteria. The main difference is that instead of the usual 25 credits, students have to complete 60 credits in 1 calendar year. For context, this equates to a full year of studies, as full-time students are expected to complete about 5 credits per month. Another main difference to the open university intake is that there are no GPA requirements. So if the student fulfills the admission criteria, completes a set of courses, and in total 60 credits from our offered courses, they will be accepted into the computer science program. Also, as was mandatory for the whole project, there were no course fees involved. For this study, we had 3 research questions we wanted to investigate. First one being, how did the DEFA project affect student intake in general? So to describe some of the general trends shown in these tables. In the University of Oulu, both the number of applicants and accepted students is rising throughout the project in both the main and DEFA intake. The University of Turku shows a similar trend, though the number of accepted students is capped by an acceptance quota that was then later removed after the project. In the University of Jyväskylä, the number of applicants is decreasing in main intake, but increasing in the DEFA intake. The number of accepted students is a bit erratic due to changes in program structure during the runtime of the project. In the University of Helsinki, the number of applicants was rising in all intakes, though it seemed to reach peak for main intake in 2020. And the number of accepted students stayed approximately the same for the DEFA intake throughout the project, increased slightly for the main intake and significantly for the open university intake. So to summarize, the DEFA intake did increase the number of applicants in all of the participating universities, and the number of accepted students in almost all, though there were some yearly differences or capped student intakes used due to university set intake quotas. So from our perspective for the project, this is a great start. It aligns with our goals. Moving on to the second research question, how do students accepted through the DEFA project perform in their studies compared to students accepted through other intake mechanisms? Generally, DEFA students seem to perform at least as well as main intake students, and in some cases, even better in both terms of acquired credits and the GPA. Since one of the main goals was to find competent and motivated students, we are, based on these results, quite happy with the outcome. What will be interesting to study in the future is how far this motivation carries. Do students drop out or switch majors, and do they continue the master's program? For our third and last research question, do the demographics of students accepted through the DEFA project differ from the general student population? I have to deliver some unfortunate news. Significantly fewer women were accepted through the DEFA intake, although University of Oulu is an outlier here. In their case, statistically significantly more women were accepted, to 52% of the accepted students were women. However, since the absolute numbers are rather small in their case, we do not know at this point whether this is a permanent trend. But looking at the overall acceptance demographics, this is not the direction we would like to take our student admissions. And although this is not completely surprising, as previous studies, such as the one by Tobias et al., reference at the bottom of the slide, have concluded with similar results. It would be interesting to investigate how many women start the courses but drop out at some point, and if they end up applying to computer science through other intake mechanisms, or if they leave the field completely. I don't know if the text is visible at all in these slides, but the y-axis is the number of students and the x-axis is age, starting from around 18 to 19 years old. So these are our age demographics for the accepted students. Generally, DEFA students are older than those accepted through the main intake. This may be because the main intake is still advertised a lot in high schools, so it might be more attractive or just more commonly known to younger applicants. Older applicants also might be at a point where they want to switch careers, and the DEFA intake may be a very suitable intake mechanism for them for that reason. So in conclusion for the demographics, the gender distribution is unfortunately not great, and the age distribution skews more towards older applicants than we thought it would. So to summarize, what can we take away from this? We built an intake mechanism that, after the setup phase of the online courses, works scalably and seems to catch students' interest. We saw an increase both in the number of applicants and accepted students. And the DEFA project was also able to have an effect to student acceptance quotas in one of the participating universities, University of Turku, by removing them completely after the end of the project, making the system, in their case, also more scalable. Through this intake mechanism, we accepted students who performed just as well in their studies, or in some cases even better than students accepted through other intake mechanisms. Time will tell if there is difference in, for example, student retention and graduation times. We did not quite reach the demographics we wanted. Gender-wise, the result of fewer women being accepted to the DEFA intake is not completely unexpected, but still unfortunate and something we need to address when moving forward. Age-wise, we were a bit surprised to see how much the distribution skews towards older students, and to address this, we could try to advertise the intake mechanism more for high school students, and especially recent graduates who have a gap year after high school before moving on to the university level education. That's it from me. Thank you for your attention. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. Questions?
Hi, thank you for that presentation. So in terms of having older students for your DEFA program, do you think, have you had a chance to sort of interview some of them to discuss what may be the underlying motivation? Do they see that as a reskilling or upskilling opportunity, which is why they're coming into the program and there is flexibility enough for them to come into it?
Thank you, that's a good question. We haven't had time to interview students yet, but our next plan is to kind of a survey questionnaire type of study, where this is one of the things that we would like to ask from students who were accepted through the DEFA project. It is definitely one of the hypotheses we have is that yes, they might be working for the re-education purposes. Also, what was I thinking? Sorry, lost my train of thought. Yeah, they might be able to take a study leave from their work, and because especially for University of Helsinki, since the requirements are so high, students basically need to work full time in order to get accepted. So it might be easier for those who are able to afford it, take a study leave, and not necessarily, for example, high school students who are still working towards their high school degree.
Since I'm not very familiar with the Finnish system, I have like a question, especially about the women like distribution. I'm just really curious that, let's say if you have like if you got admitted to the University of Helsinki and you decided to major in literature, is there a pathway for you to explore computer science? That like if you have had no historical background and going through the DEFA process and then getting into CS. I'm just curious if that's even like a mechanism at all.
That's also a really good question. So when students apply to any Finnish university, they choose their major at the time of the application, and when they get accepted both for bachelor's and master's program at the same time. There are some mechanisms for switching your majors within the university or even within Finnish universities, but from my knowledge, those are not very widely used. However, the system of picking minors is very flexible. So essentially, unless it's something like students cannot take a minor in pharmacy, for example, because that requires a whole degree, but any student from any program can take a minor in computer science. And we do have a significant amount of students, for example, from mathematics, who start in mathematics, take some computer science courses, and then switch over to computer science.
That's interesting. And do those people like also try this MOOCs to start out, or do they just take like the in-person like computer science courses?
It varies mostly on their schedules and their interest. The materials are the same. So, for example, for the introductory programming courses, both are in person, and MOOC students use the exact same online material. The only difference is that the in person students also have lectures that they can attend if they so will.
Thank you. Yeah.
I probably have a relevant question. So, with this new program, did you see mostly students that are traditionally interested in computer science, like math or good in physics, or did you see literature major students or applying more often through this new channel?
That's also something that we don't have in our current data, but are trying to find out. So we are asking about the interest and also about what exams the students took at the end of their high school. So if they took an exam, for example, in mathematics and physics, we know that they might be more STEM field oriented than those who mostly focused on the subjects.
Nia, I have a question here. I'm Shui from Columbia University. It was a nice chat with you at lunch and knowing a little bit more about Finnish system. Could you help me understand that the reason why you said people are dropping out could be they are working, or sometimes they are find a job during the program, so they left. What is it like for the job market in Finnish environment? That do people need to have an undergrad degree in order to work as a CS programmer? Is that expected, or actually it's not? And the following questions is a little bit different. Is that are there courses that can be recognized by taking other universities or online MOOC courses in the current program that's offered and be recognized as credits? Thank you.
So for the first one, there are definitely students who, after the first year of their studies, or if they applied to the University of Helsinki through DEFA, they can get employed during the first summer. And some of the students just stay on that route. Usually the expectation is that they should complete at least their bachelor's degree at some point. But for some students, they really just get stuck in the job market and they are there for years. The limit we give since acceptance is 7 years, and in that time frame, we expect students to complete both their bachelor's and master's. The expected time frame for that is actually 5 years, but we give them 7 years. And sometimes we do have students that do 1 year of studies, go away for 6 years, and then appear out of nowhere saying that, hey, my employer actually wants me to complete my bachelor's degree. What can I do? I'm running out of time. And sorry, what was the second question?
Other courses currently in the program can be acquired through taking other universities' courses or MOOC courses. That's inclusive. Because I thought that's quite popular in Europe, not very much in US yet.
Okay. So for the admissions, our system was that you can take, for example, an introductory programming course in any of the participating universities. In the case of programming, that's maybe not the best example. It's probably the best to take it in a programming language that matches the university you are applying to. But basically, if there is an overlap in the courses of the universities participating in this project, students can take the course from any of the universities. We did not extend this any further, at least for now, just because how the project was framed and funded.
Just another quick follow-up here. I recall you mentioning that you kind of wanted to advertise the program to more high school students and get that younger demographic in. What does like a typical university classroom look like in terms of age distribution? I know you showed some, like relatively speaking, it's more younger in profile, but is there a desire to, what's exactly the intention behind trying to get more of the younger people into the program versus catering to this other demographic that's in?
So from the university's perspective, we of course we just want motivated students regardless of their age. The pressure for picking up more younger students comes from the government and from the ministry. So that's also what they are trying to get at, from my understanding, is having less gap years between high school and entering university or other tertiary education. But generally, our classrooms tend to be on the younger side. There's also, well, one more Finland-specific factor. The men have a mandatory military service that lasts up to a year. So that also usually means that if a student comes from high school, women start at slightly younger age than men, because men usually take the military service at the beginning of their university studies rather than putting their studies on a pause and then continuing after the service.
Any other questions either in the room or online? Okay, if not, thank you so much to our Okay, we are heading into the